Today I'm going to be talking about the structure and function of the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system consists of the heart, blood vessels and blood. It works by causing the heart to pump blood around the body faster. When we exercise, the heart contracts more often, meaning that the heart rate increases. Also, the volume of blood pumped from the heart with each beat increases. This is known as stroke volume. The cardiovascular system is vital for the healthy functioning of the body. After lots of regular exercise, for example swimming, for an hour twice a week and running for half an hour 3 times a week, this will have an effect on the cardiovascular system. Some effects are that the heart muscle gets stronger and bigger in size, which is also known as hypertrophy. The cardiac output increases. This means the amount of blood that is pumped out of the heart from one ventricle per minute. Also, they will recover quicker from exercise because they have a lower resting heart rate. There are many different functions of the cardiovascular system. These are nutrients delivery, clotting, waste product removal, the transportation of oxygen, protection from infection, and thermoregulation. The cardiovascular system transports nutrients, which is what our muscles need. The nutrients is like fuel for our body. The fuel we use is carried around. The fuel includes things like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, which are absorbed into the bloodstream after the food we've eaten has been digested. Each of the nutrients is needed so that the body can function properly and be healthy. For example, glucose, which is a form of energy from carbohydrates. It can be delivered to muscles and organs that need energy. The blood not only transports nutrients, but also waste products, for example lactic acid. Lactic acid occurs when we exercise anaerobically. Anaerobic exercise is when someone exercises without the presence of oxygen. Nutrients is transported throughout the body in your blood via capillaries, which are here. Capillaries are tiny blood vessels which connect arteries to veins. Without the delivery of nutrients, your body cannot function properly, as nutrients are useful elements that enables the body to perform day-to-day activities. An athlete competing in the 800-metre freestyle swimming event at Rio would need a lot of nutrients. This is because they need a lot of fuel and energy to enable them to be able to perform well and allowing their body to function properly. The next function of the cardiovascular system is blood clotting. When a blood vessel gets injured, clotting prevents the loss of too much blood. Platelets and some proteins in the plasma also perform together to try to stop the bleeding by making a clot over the injury. After the injury has been healed, the blood clot will just dissolve. When a blood vessel, here, is broken, the smooth muscle in the blood vessel wall contracts. The contraction therefore means that less blood can escape, meaning it reduces the blood loss, until the platelets can come and form a scab to block the blood escaping altogether. There are many things in the blood called clotting factors which help the blood to clot. Clotting can happen in veins or arteries. These are both part of the body's circulatory system. Blood clots can sometimes cause a problem in the vein or artery if the blood is prevented from flowing through the blood vessels. Sometimes, if the blood was clotted in an artery, a stroke or heart attack can occur. This is because arteries supply blood to the heart and brain. An athlete, such as a long jumper, competing at Rio would need blood clotting so that they don't lose too much blood if they get injured. And the platelets forming scabs will stop infections entering and also sand getting into the wound. The next function of the cardiovascular system is waste product removal. An example of a waste product that is removed by the cardiovascular system is carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is produced in muscles and is removed from the body cells. This means that more oxygen can be supplied by the cardiovascular system to the muscle cells. The oxygen travels in the blood, and if more oxygen is being supplied, the muscles will fatigue much slower. Waste products are always being made by the body and must be removed. The carbon dioxide is removed from the body through the lungs. This is because when the heart receives blood low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide, it pumps it to the lungs. The lungs then get the oxygen and it's transferred to low oxygen blood. The blood, then rich in oxygen, then returns to the heart. Another waste product is lactic acid. This builds up during anaerobic exercise and is removed from the muscles by the blood flowing through them. The effects of lactic acid are that it causes muscle pain and often leads to the stopping of the activity we're doing. When we recover, we take in oxygen, and this helps to convert lactic acid into a waste product so we can get rid of it. A Rio athlete such as Mo Farah would need a fast removal of waste products because his muscles need to get rid of carbon dioxide so that oxygen can be given to his working muscles. The next function of the cardiovascular system is the transportation of oxygen. Oxygen is carried in the blood by hemoglobin. The oxygen then diffuses out of the red blood cells and then into the muscle cells by diffusion again. The oxygen in the muscle cells then allows the muscle to contract and therefore movement is created. The transportation of oxygen and it being supplied to the body is one of the most essential functions of the cardiovascular system. When our lungs expand during inhalation, air enters the lungs and oxygen is absorbed through the air sacs and then into the bloodstream. The blood, which is rich in oxygen, is then pumped to the heart. The oxygen is then pumped to muscles which are working the hardest. Myoglobin is located in muscle cells and carries oxygen in the muscles. This helps with muscle functioning. The more oxygen that is being transported around the body and supplied to working muscles, the longer it will take for the body to fatigue. Oxygen is one of the most important elements needed to sustain life. Without oxygen, we would die. Oxygen also plays a vital role in destroying harmful bacteria in our bodies. Furthermore, oxygen is required for aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is exercising with the presence of oxygen. This type of exercise can be continued for long periods of time due to the presence of oxygen. A Rio athlete competing in the 800 metres event would need a good amount of oxygen to be transported and then supplied to their working muscles. This is so the athlete doesn't fatigue as fast and they can work aerobically. The next function of the cardiovascular system is protection from infection. The cardiovascular system protects the body from pathogens with white blood cells. Pathogens are microorganisms that can cause infectious diseases. The three types of pathogen are bacteria, fungi, and viruses. There are three different ways a white blood cell can destroy a pathogen, and these are shown in this diagram. The first way is by white blood cells ingesting it, meaning that the bacteria, fungi, or virus, the pathogen, is completely destroyed. The next way is by the white blood cell producing antibodies. The antibodies lock onto the antigens and then the white blood cell digests it. And then the final way that the white blood cells destroy a pathogen is by producing and then releasing antitoxins. These neutralise the effect of the toxins which have been released by the pathogens. Pathogens are prevented from entering the body by platelets and red blood cells. The platelets and red blood cells form scabs to close the wound, stopping pathogens from entering the body. Antibodies are also carried in the blood. They help fight the pathogens because they have been disclosed to the pathogens before, meaning that they know how to fight them. Any athlete at Rio would need their cardiovascular system to protect them from infection. This is so that they can avoid getting any infectious diseases, which may result in them not being able to compete. White blood cells are one of the main ways the cardiovascular system protects the body from infection, but platelets also do. Platelets are cells that have a job of clotting the blood. Many platelets join together to become a temporary scab, while the skin is repairing itself. The scab prevents too much blood loss and also helps to prevent infections entering. The final function of the cardiovascular system is thermoregulation. Thermoregulation is the cardiovascular system's way of either heating up the body or cooling the body down. Our body's temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. If the body is lower than that, the body needs to be warmed up. The cardiovascular system does this by vasoconstriction. This is when the blood vessels constrict, meaning they get narrower. They constrict so that a smaller volume of blood can get to the skin, meaning less blood will evaporate and escape. The blood that is close to the skin is taken and kept closer to the heart. This means less blood is being lost, therefore meaning less heat is being lost, because the heat is carried in the blood. The opposite to vasoconstriction is vasodilation. This is when the body is over 37 degrees Celsius, which usually occurs when doing exercise. Vasodilation is the opening, which is also known as dilating, of blood vessels, meaning more blood can flow through. This allows the blood to be closer to the skin, meaning more heat can escape from the skin through evaporation. An example of the importance of thermoregulation for an athlete competing at Rio would be in the 5,000-meter race. In this race, the athlete would be getting extremely hot, so vasodilation would be occurring. This is important so the athlete doesn't get too hot. It's important that the blood flows closer to the skin for evaporation to cool the athlete down and decrease their body temperature. There are two different circulation systems which coincide with the cardiovascular system. These are systemic and pulmonary circulation. Systemic circulation is a circuit in which the central body provides oxygenated blood, whereas pulmonary circulation is when blood is oxygenated from the circuiting through the lungs. The heart influences both types of circulation. This is an extremely basic example of the two different types of circulation. Systemic circulation is when oxygenated blood is pumped through the aorta, which is the largest artery in the body, and away from the heart's left ventricle, which is here, then away. The blood then travels within the systemic arteries to the arterioles and capillary beds. At this point, nutrients and oxygen are released. Any waste products, such as carbon dioxide, are absorbed. Then deoxygenated blood, which is from the capillary beds, go within the venules into the systemic veins. These veins lead into the vena cava. Deoxygenated blood is then returned to the right atrium of the heart, which is here. Pulmonary circulation, however, is when deoxygenated blood is carried away from the right ventricle of the heart and through the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk branches into the left and right pulmonary arteries. Here, deoxygenated blood is transported to the arterioles and capillary beds, which are in the lungs. In the lungs, carbon dioxide is expelled and oxygen absorbed. The oxygenated blood then goes within the venules into the pulmonary veins. The oxygenated blood is then taken to the left atrium of the heart.